Святейшего Патриарха Московского и всея Руси, да помянет Господь Бог во царстве Своем, всегда, ныне присно и во веки веков.
Welcome back to Mysterium Fasces. This is our second episode entitled The Fascist Worldview. To begin this episode, we're going to listen to a new article from Greve Hans, published at ropeculture.com, or .org, whatever the case may be. Here to present the article is the author himself. Greve Hans, please go ahead.
Hey. Now that we've established that intellectuals are kikes, it's time to figure out what makes the kikes what they are, kikes. First and foremost, we have to understand the concept of the body of Christ, which is the church. The church was supposed to contain everything, from the emperor to the poor Macedonian peasants. They all had their specific place and function within the body of Christ. It is, in fact, more or less the same thing as the cosmic order. Logos manifesting into the creation. The church itself is the whole, and its leader is God himself. With this in mind, the thought of a symphony between the emperor and the patriarch makes perfect sense. Their will is directed to the same thing, to be true to their calling, and through that become a part of the body of Christ. There is also in Christian theology the concept of God's energies. As humans, we cannot fully comprehend God in the fullness. This reminds of how St. Paul did not see the face of God when he had his famous vision and renounced Talmudism. You can visualize it as someone holding a prism in front of a light source. The light source, Logos, is filtered through the lens, yet we're not the full Logos. That would be impossible. We're only a part of the whole. The meaning of existence is to be unified with God. Yet we have free will. We can choose not to. We can choose to rebel. We can choose to ignore our calling, our ray from the prism, our lot of talents. We can choose instead to be of the world, devoted to base desires, smiling as we continue to look at the shadows on the cave wall, snacking on popcorn and asking our fellow idiots if it was to switch another shade. Yet when any normal person does this person feels bad. If you masturbate, you feel bad afterwards. And you should. This is to abuse what you have. Your genitals is supposed to be jerked out by a hand and the seed flushed down. You're supposed to make a new life with it. Because with your own free will, you pervert that which has been given to you. You're stepping away from God. You're abandoning Logos in favor of Kam. This is slavery to your own desires. It's pathetic. And you are only as much of a slave to it as you choose yourself to be. St. Ignatius of Loyola wrote this in his Meditations. The one who does bad will eventually feel good by doing bad, and very bad by doing or seeing good, like an exorcism. That is why these people hate beauty, they cannot stand it. Likewise, the one who does good will eventually feel very bad for doing bad things. Such as sodomy. Repentant homo Michael Voris of Church Militant is a good example of someone realizing what he was doing was horrible. Masturbation is sodomy as well, for good reasons. Raging sodomites who do not feel bad what they are doing have with their own free will abandoned God. God is dead and we have killed them. Because they have abandoned God, they have also abandoned the Holy Spirit, which would function in us as inner voice, telling us what is right and what is wrong, dragging us up to God. Since at this point you would be totally godless, you could no longer feel any love. This is because love is recognizing the beauty of something, the spark of logos in it, and through that loving it. Philia, not eros. A painting is a symbol for something deeper that hides behind it. But through the painting we can see a glimpse of that which hides behind it, the spark of logos. This is also why blasphemy against the Holy Spirit was seen as the one unforgivable sin, because by doing that you rebel against God and close your heart to Him. Thus you are not yourself open for God's grace. You are abandoned to your own hellfire. Dude, come. For the people who reject God, logos, there is only power. They see no meaning in following any laws, because they have no laws. They have no laws because they have rejected God. They have rejected the Holy Spirit. They have rejected the cosmic order, rejected ideals and standards. Thus, for them, everything is a competition for power. Power for power's sake. This is a desire, not a will. A desire. They desire to be powerful. They are drowning in their lust for domination. The only thing they are expanding into is an infinite void without an end. Lucifer rebelled against God and took a third of the angels down with him in the fall. Deprived of all power, he saw only one way to achieve what he desired. That was to corrupt God's creation. He saw how man had free will and successfully made Adam and Eve commit sin through their own free will. Here comes the difference between the city of God and the city of the devil. The city of God is where man follows his inner calling and is content with this place. Like pillars leaning upon each other, everything is in perfect harmony with God, the cosmic order. The city of the devil is a city whose prince is Satan. It is true that he is bound and shackled, but the Bible tells us that during the era of the 1,000-year reign, that is, period between Christ's first and second coming, right now, Satan would still be able to influence the creation through us willfully walking to him. He would no longer be able to oppress us through original sin, but he would be able to drag us away from our salvation and make us linger here. He does this through the thirst for power, the desire to dominate. It is in this light we got to see the Masonic legend of the Temple of Solomon, not the actual temple in the Bible. The temple which Solomon supposedly built through demons. Solomon, wise as he was eventually seduced by the world and started to worship the gods of his wives, all demonic entities. The Temple of Solomon in the Masonic sense is not the same thing as the cosmic order, nor the temple where God dwelt. It is, in fact, the same thing as the synagogue of Satan. It is dissolving everything sacred and using these very atoms as a clay to shape something else. It's stealing the living stones which are supposed to be in God's temple and places them instead in the synagogue of Satan. They know they cannot create something by themselves, so they have to work with that which is already created and corrupt it. This is what the Kaiks did. They rejected the truth by nailing Christ on the cross and choosing the Talmud over the Messiah. They chose Satan. In their pride, they could not stand that Christ was supposed to be the savior of all, and not just their savior. Just how Lucifer and Catholic thought could not stand Mary becoming Queen of Heaven. So they rebelled and built their own temple. Kaiks wanted a worldly king to make them powerful for power's sake, which you can see in Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Christ for a few shekels, for being disappointed when he realized that Jesus wasn't supposed to be the worldly king he wanted to. This reshaping of the creation might sound very outlandish, but when you think about it, we see it every day. GMO food, trannies, faggots, calm-down paganism, race mixing, banking, that is interest rate demanding expansion at the cost of something else, that is will to power crushing the organic, and so on. Everything the Jew does is to break down the national order created by God, imposing their own instead. They want to be God. They want power, not truth, power. So they level the temple, and from the clay, the rabbinic sorcerer creates a golem with carriers and nukes. When you think about it, this makes perfect sense. You still pray before the Wailing Wall, said to be a wall of Solomon's temple. God only knows what demons would escape from it should we actually demolish it. But with this in the back of our heads, Judaism makes perfect sense. Not to mention the fact that Jews murdered Jesus, Logos incarnated. By doing this, the Jews have placed upon themselves a curse. They have through this act rejected all truth, all order, God himself. And every day they repeat this act by trying to drown us all in their filth in an attempt to dissolve us, end God's creation into nothingness, a void. By race mixing, we distort our natures to the degree that we don't know who we are. We become a coffee-colored brown sludge, a clay Rabbi Weissenthal can forge a new man from, a golem drone content with living in a rat-cage apartment, paying his 14% interest on his $300,000 loan with his minuscule wage from working 12 hours a day in the Goy factory. The only communion this drone will take will be the colorful pills he'll take every morning to prevent killing himself, making him duller and duller for every day. America's become the rabbi's golem fighting against God's cosmic order. Jews see Goyim as animals, not of Adam, that is animals. The Jews alone would be the true humans. To them we're like smarter animals, one can use and abuse to their whim. And the perfect goy for the kaik is the urban golem. Reliable sources have told me that they have heard time and time again with their own ears that the military in America, at least Air Force, hungers for another war so they can bomb the living crap out of people. A satanic desire to destroy, to dominate, to feel powerful. With white people there would not be any collateral damage. If anything, they could be praised for killing off evil Nazis, like the Force Watcher Ernst Junger's The Model Cliffs, laughing as he sends his blood dogs to the population, simply defending their organic way of life. These people are beyond reason. They are beyond morals. They are beyond logos. They have shunned the Holy Spirit, the glue of creation itself, as theologians describe it, the shiny glory of God, and instead choose to become slaves to their passion to destroy and rule. They can only rule over the ashes of the creation, so they must through this shun God. The antidote to this is not a dreamy ideal of a rural nation with peasants peacefully tilling the earth. We are not safe. Unlike our forefathers, we now have the machine, a terrible creation which consumes natural resources and gives titanic power. The Jews have in their satanic thirst for power enslaved this weapon to the usury system. Thus it not only consumes the natural world, but it also is forced to expand its operation exponentially. Now we're at the point where whole society is a machine. Computerized bureaucratic demagoguery, where bureaucrats are placed upon the thrones of the dukes, barons, and lords of old, with blindness on their face, obsessed whether giving food for the Svensson family goes against B103 or a support under another law. The Jew has full control of this machine, and with it the Jew seeks to crush the whole of creation. So should we just dream away, cuddle up to a relatively healthy woman, and create a family in an isolated homestead? No. The total mobilization against the Jews and the forces of Satan is being sounded. Can't you feel it? The Force Watcher's bloodhounds are approaching. Can't you hear them? The Matrix shadow is looming over your kid, picking flowers outside. Can't you see it, with its thousands of tendrils and satanic stature, blotting out the sky itself? If we isolate ourselves now and ignore the call for total mobilization, there's none to fight him anymore, and Sog's dogs can go house to house and kill, rape, and abuse every single one of you, just like they have already done. You either stand under Christ's banner at Jerusalem, or under Lucifer's at Babylon. So the only thing we can do is to build our own machine and crush the New World Order and their satanic drive for power's sake, without us ourselves being seduced by the temptations of this power. The plow must become a gun, or more like the 5 terabytes of anime must be replaced with social competence, physical fitness, and a preparation to head into the woods once the European governments are starting to collapse, which they will very, very soon. We are heading into another great war, not between 2 empires, but between 2 machines. The machine trying to demolish the synagogue of Satan, and the machine which the Masons carefully built up with square and a compass. The peace of the Jew is the death of civilized humanity. The peace of the rural pacifists is inevitable rape and murder, not necessarily in that order, of his whole family in front of his very eyes before he is killed too, as a result of him abandoning their bastion. Only with the death of Zog and killing our internal Jew, before the external, will we be able to go back to another rural age. The machine is dependent on natural resources, and they are shrinking and getting more and more scarce for every day, as the demand for them is becoming higher and higher. If we are to survive, we must fight for our survival. We must grab all the resources we need to drain it all. Only when these have been exhausted, or when we have won, with our spirit intact, we can return to the farm, but only then. The new Solomon of the Kikes is taking another step towards the throne of his temple for every year, and his number is 666. Can't you see the rabbi rocking back and forth, praying to the wall where Lucifer himself is shackled?
That article is entitled The Synagogue of Satan. We'll post a link to it in the show notes, and you can read it on ironmarch.org. Thank you very much, Greve Hans, for your contribution. It was a great article. Our show today is not primarily focused on this topic, though certainly in the coming weeks and months we will do an episode entirely dedicated to the Jews. But we'll have to wait a little bit longer to get into that material. Without further ado, I'm your host, Florian Geyer. Welcome back to Mysterium Fasces for our second episode. Today with me I've got Dr. Mayhem, PhD, leader of the TRS Expeditionary Force. Welcome on the show, Dr. Mayhem.
Well, we'll see how long that lasts until the higher-ups find out who's actually running shit.
And we've got Greve Hans, of course, of Iron March and sometimes Daily Stormer fame.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on, Greve.
Pleasure to be here.
We've got Natt, former leader of the alt-right.
Hello, boys. It's a pleasure to be on.
Thank you for joining us, Natt. And we've got Zyger of the Daily Stormer and Iron March, and infamous for Natt.
Hello. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I think that we've got a really good guest panel today to discuss some very important topics.
The best guest panel.
The best guest panel, indeed. Before we get into the main topics of our show, which center really around the fascist worldview, I want to just do a few objects of house cleaning. The reaction we got from the first episode was really good, and I want to say big thank you to everybody who listened and left a comment and gave good feedback. You know, I really enjoyed that. So keep commenting. I really like the interaction with everybody out there who's listening.
So do I.
Yeah, exactly. If you have any material you'd like us to cover on the show, don't hesitate to forward it to us. If you've got any essays or you've got any news stories, or maybe you yourself would like to come on and discuss a certain topic, you can message myself or anybody
Natt.
else, Natt, indeed, over Twitter or Skype or Discord as well. So we
even
look forward to
Twitter.
hearing from you. Yeah. Excellent. That being said, we've got a few things coming up later in the month. As I said, we're going to be covering the Jews at some point in October, and towards Halloween we're going to be doing a very special Aryo Occult Mysterium Theater 1488 episode. So look forward to that. It's very spooky, yes.
Oh, no.
Indeed. This podcast is a spook. So, let's get right into our main subject for today. That's fascism, the fascist worldview. So
The best worldview.
exact. So let's ask the question directly. What is fascism? Zaga, perhaps if you'd care to open up with a pithy definition.
Fascism basically is the cosmic order or the natural order applied to society. In other words, when you're concerned about finding out what's the ultimate truth of reality, and that you could say it in a scientific sense of like learning how the world works, how nature works, all that's the we take that attitude, that scientific attitude, and it can be applied to spiritual things also. But we take that attitude and say, well, regardless of what we find out, we have to be objective, like children before the world. We just observe and learn how things work, and then we apply that to social organization, and we integrate that into a personal discipline. So I think that, like, very superficially, I would say that's the meaning of fascism. And obviously that's going to be very different from what people would be familiar with if they never actually delved into it and read fascist readers. What do you think about that definition?
That's accurate, and it's the one I operate on. But I think that one of the questions we get asked often enough, well, if fascism is just adherence to natural law, how come we've never heard this definition before? Because certainly when you first Thank you, Natt. Because certainly when you first came on Nationalist Review Online and explained this worldview to me, I had never heard of it before, and I found that it conformed exactly to what I already believed.
Well, if you want to know why people never heard this definition before, well, the answer is pretty simple. Like, where did they learn about fascism before? How did they, hear about it? Well, they heard about it from our enemies, basically, people who hate us and who don't understand us. They heard it from Hollywood movies, from Wikipedia, from high school and university history books, all these sorts of things. And these people not only don't understand it, but they're not interested in understanding it. They define fascism in terms of how it opposes what they like and what they believe in. So the common understanding of fascism is in terms of how it's different and antithetical to liberal modern values. So they're going to define it in terms of it's racism, it's anti-Semitism, it's nationalism, or it's socialist economics. Whatever it is that they don't like about it, that's what they're going to describe. And so in the early days of white nationalism and right-wing kind of understanding and learning about fascism, we kind of took all those things and said, hey, those things are actually good things. So, we're fascists and we believe in all of those things, racism, anti-Semitism, nationalism, all those things. But, after a while, people started to read about it, not just, learn from the cliches and from common sources, but they said, hey, let's go and start reading, the actual fascists themselves, or intellectuals that were influential in National Socialist and fascist circles. So we're talking about people, of course, like Evola. We're talking about, Hitler himself in Mein Kampf. We're talking about Mussolini's Doctrine of Fascism. All of these books and these intellectuals, also Spengler, different historians that were very had a strong influence over these people. So as right-wing activists throughout the world, more recent years, have studied this and had big arguments about it and tried to boil things down to its essence, we arrived at a very different picture. And it's become clear that this picture is kind of different from the normal understanding just by elimination. Because all these things that, the liberal establishment is saying that fascism is, it really doesn't make much sense, because in the historic context, if they say, oh, fascism is racism, well, in the 1920s, everyone was racist. Americans were racist, democracy, communism, Like there was no such thing as like liberal anti-racist back then. So saying that fascism is racism is like that's how you define it makes no sense because that was just common sense back then. Now, of course, fascism is racist, but that's not the essence of it. Same thing for anti-Semitism. Nobody liked Jews back then, so like it wasn't some new thing that they made up that Jews are dangerous. It was just again common sense, and
Can I bring up an analogy?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to come with a quick analogy to help. Well, really, when you understand the racial question, right? If you are boiling down and you're analyzing the question of race and Judaism in general, right? You have to understand that the basic functionality of fascism is that we view the nation and the people as a state, as an organism, right? So when you notice a tumor, right? If you notice a tumor, and in this case, we're talking about Jews. Well, you think normally, well, I need to analyze this tumor, and I would probably be in my best interest to remove it. But essentially, there's much more to the well-being of an organism than just removing a few tumors, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. So again, going with what you said, the non-fascists, in the 20s and the 30s, they also understood that, races were not equal and that Jews were bad. But since their values were different, since their worldview was that, what's important is to be comfortable and safe and like keep things steady, they didn't orient their societies towards like cutting out Jews and separating the races, because they said, well, Jews are bringing wealth, we can borrow money from them, so we'll just, deal with them. It doesn't matter. Say, yeah, we believe in our nation. Nationalism is cool, but it's more economically efficient to have open borders and like free trade, and we can get stuff cheaper. So because they value different things, because they had a different worldview, different value system, even though they had the same understanding about these basic issues, they didn't behave the same way. And so that's why the essence of fascism is in terms of the values and what people think is the most important. And that dictates why they behaved so differently, even back in the 1920s and 30s. So I think it's a good first step towards understanding why our common understanding today of fascism is different from how they thought about it. And also a last detail that I want to say on this subject is that, a lot of people will say, Italian fascism is different from National Socialism, or say like, all these different, hard right states in the 20s and 30s, they were all like different systems. So you can't say that is the same thing. But that's a mistake. Of course, they had different policies, but all of these people thought they were fighting on the same side, and they thought they had the same enemy, Western, Judaized civilization. And they stood for something similar, for something eternal. So again, there is something deeper to it, and it's worth investigating. And when you do investigate it, turns out that it's what we already said, the adherence to the cosmic order.
I think let me just come with one quick comment, because everything you just said, Zeiger, is of course 100% correct, and if you don't understand what you're saying, you're pretty much a retard. But I'm gonna point out the following. I think one of the reasons why people don't seem to understand the essentials of fascism is because they only view politics through economical and financial means. They only understand politics in material terms. So, of course, when they look at fascism, right, they just look at the financial elements to it, and maybe a bit on neopolitical aspects of, like, more human rights, etc., etc. So, essentially, they'll never really get to the essence of it, because they've not been given the mental tools to actually understand something deeper integrated into an ideology besides material means. So, when that is being established, I think that if you give people the mental tools to view like aspects like value politics, I think maybe they will be capable of understanding the deeper essence of National Socialism and fascism.
But
It's just intellectualist.
Fascism won't let me have my cummies and consumerism.
I mean, these people are spiritually dead already. So of course they reject truth, because it hurts to them. These people just want everyone to be just as bad as they are. And that's what equality is. It's dragging everyone down to the lowest denominator. And that's, dude, come.
What? You're telling me I have to reevaluate my situation of my life? Please don't make me do this! No!
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that hits the nail on the head there. That's how people act now.
The opposite of quality is equality.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good buzzword, Florian. That's a good buzzword.
It's a good meme.
Yeah.
It's an NRX meme, but very good nevertheless.
Just because you're unique doesn't mean you're very useful.
True.
That's also a good one. That's also a good one.
As I say, I mean, NRX is flawed, needless to say, but they do have some good points.
NRX, more like Nerd RX. Am I right, guys?
That's that. Wow, biting analyzation. That.
Oh yeah, they're definitely nerds.
Reactionaries have no point at this point, because there's nothing to go back to. Everything that we had is destroyed. The kikes have dissolved it all already.
Yes, perhaps we can talk about
That's
this
a good point.
a little bit later on. Let's. I want to just get these facts established here. Yeah, and I think that this is what Zeiger said. Of course, is absolutely correct. And this misunderstanding, this general lack of true definition of what fascism is from its own perspective in the popular understanding of it, manifests itself in all sorts of retarded ways. Like, I got so many people saying, oh, well, you can't be a National Socialist because you're a Christian. Yeah, wow, stupid. Don't you know the Pope wrote in an encyclical against Hitler in Germany? Wow. And it's, these basically are non sequiturs. I mean, and just it's obvious. The way fascism manifests itself in one regime with one ideology for one specific people is not going to be the same as it manifests itself in other arrangements. So if we're going to say that, oh, well, you can't be a fascist because Hitler, disrespected the rights of the Catholic Church, well, then that means, I guess, Codriano is not a fascist, right? Yeah. I guess the clerical fascists in Croatia or Mussolini, I guess these guys weren't really fascists.
Yeah, and that also ties into a bit what also Spengler wrote. Spengler wrote that at this point in the civilization, the stage we're at now, a nation must be true to this nation's national idea, to its soul, or whatever you want to call it, because only when the nation establishes a frigid, rigid form that it adheres to, which is based upon the very national soul, the national spirit, then that's the only way that nation can survive. Because at this point you have power competitions, all this stuff, and unless a nation is true to its nature, it dies.
And another thing about that, too, is context that they seem to miss. Oh, the Pope, yeah, he didn't like Hitler very much, but notice how he didn't say shit about Codriano, Franco. I don't even think he wrote anything on Mussolini. So
and in fact, his predecessor praised Salazar in Portugal as being the model of a Christian leader, basically. Although Salazar was he wasn't quite fascist, he was just a hard right authoritarian. But anyway.
Close enough.
I think we've established pretty well why fascism has so many misconceptions in the culture and why so many people don't actually know what it is. And it's the usual reasons. The propaganda from our enemies dominates the intellectual spectrum.
The thing. Let me add something here. In terms of like our enemies, right? If you are to look at the people who are like hyper materialistic, right? And like if you're looking at people who are like saying, well, look at the byproducts of an ideology, right? That make if they're merely looking at the byproducts and the achievements of a ideology in general. If you say, for example, to a hyper materialist, and you say, hey, listen, dumb fuck, do you know the reason why America got to the moon? And they will, of course, say, well, free markets. And of course, you'll correct them and say, well, no, you're retarded. Let me explain to you why. You know about the V2 rockets and those scientists from Germany? Yeah, that's the fucking reason you got up there, you fucking fat burgers, right? If you go up with that, by that sort of argumentation, you can actually convince some people if they're like hyper-materialists. But even if you go out from that perimeter of argumentation, they will not even understand nearly the very essence of it. Because even if we're talking about merely, scientific and material achievements, we'll also have to look. They will also say that, the racial aspect is also a very crucial point, and they will only argue about race and IQ. And still, at that point, they will not understand the very essence of National Socialism or fascism.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a few points on that. One, shout out old cocky Caucasian there. He had a little video about the IQ nationalism, where people are like, yeah, well, we should let in people with IQ, high IQ. So it's like, okay, so you're still going to be letting in Asians and top tier Kenyans. But he called it Honda Civic nationalism, which I thought was kind of amusing. And another thing about the Honda Civic nationalism, the car, the Honda Civic. And the other funny thing, I actually did troll some fucking retard about the Nazis and the rockets. And of course, this faggot said, like, you know who the father of rocket science is? Shelkovsky, or whatever his name is. And he was a Jew. And I looked him up. Nah, his father was a Pole and his mother was a Tatar. And that shut him up real quick, though. I was like, nah, once again, the white man wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that Natt actually brought up a good point. That I've always thought that this was the case, even back before I was a fascist, but that the primary dividing principle in the alt-right is idealism versus materialism. And I really think that all of the schism and all of these questions of, should we let in homos, or all of this, these externalities, they come from this divide. Because people who are materialists, people who embrace utilitarian morality, moral relativists, etc., I mean, they don't, as we've explained before, they don't build their houses on firm ground. The nature of their ideology precludes any transcendent belief structure. They think that all that can really exist and that we can really be certain about when it comes to knowledge is, the findings of empirical science, right? And beyond, empirical science doesn't give us a value structure. It can inform us as to the nature of the physical world, but it doesn't tell us what to think about it. Empirical science can tell you about the chemical changes that happen in a mother's brain when she's nursing a child at the breast, but can it inform you of the feelings of love that exists? Can it describe the deep spiritual bond between the two? And ultimately, if you're going to embrace this kind of, empirical materialism, that's what all human interaction is reduced to. If not economic transactions for the libertarians, it's biological transactions.
Let me, I have like a somewhat different idea in the sense that I don't think that empiricism is opposed to the spiritual worldview. I think it's quite possible to even prove the spiritual worldview through empirical science. It's just that, it's possible to have experiences with other senses than the five senses. But it's also possible to prove through material experiments that the material world is like not all there is and is, subject to spiritual laws as well. And a lot of modern physics kind of disproves materialism altogether anyway. So I don't think that you have to completely reject many from many different, especially in quantum physics and things like that. That's kind of too much of too big a subject to discuss now. But I think it's possible to adopt the spiritual worldview just through reasoning and experimentation. Like I don't think that's completely opposed to one another.
Neither do I. But I view it as it's like we're going to be talking about this later. It's like race. It's a necessary component, but it's not everything. Empirical science is, of course, hugely necessary. I mean, we have to operate in the physical world, so we might as well learn about it and, engineer creations based on its laws. That's just common sense. God gives us reason for a purpose, and that is to learn. But yeah, I think that this is
the reason I was saying this is just because I'm not a Christian.
I know.
But I agree with you on almost everything.
Right.
And everything that all of my beliefs I've attained them through either like reasoning or looking at scientific results of experimentations.
Right. And I think,
Again,
and I've
so-
said this, and I've said this before, is that we are, of course, a Christian podcast here, and I said it in the first episode, is that to be a fascist, you don't necessarily have to be a Christian. I think that probably one could even be an atheist or an agnostic and subscribe to a type of Stoic philosophy. And this would provide them with the idealistic firmament in order to, live the fascist lifestyle or the worldview or whatever. And, but that's the I think that what it is it's just an issue of epistemology, right? Is empirical science the only means for obtaining real knowledge, or is it one of the means for obtaining real knowledge? And it's just about knowing what it is. Right, like empirical science, it's just a tool. The scientific method is a tool. Just like reason, just like the mind itself is just a tool. They're not ends in and of themselves, right? But they facilitate the transition from one place to another. They are the means to go somewhere. And so, with these issues, like with material problems, typically speaking, material solutions are the most effective. But likewise, with spiritual problems, spiritual solutions are likely the most effective.
Yeah, I mean, these extremist materialists, when you think about it, they don't really have anything to live for. They might as well kill themselves, and that's where existentialism comes from. There's no meaning in life. Oh, what am I supposed to do here? La 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 la.
Well, they live for pleasure and comfort.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it was Camus. He wrote that you might as well shoot an Arab because there's not really any meaning in life. But here's the point: if there's no meaning in life, then you might as well kill yourself. But you're not killing yourself, so you're hypocrites. Therefore, there might be a meaning in life in that which you cannot intellectually understand, not intellectually explain. And we know that there's some stuff that you can't intellectually explain, but you still cannot deny that they are there. For example, art. It's beautiful. You can't explain why it's beautiful. It just is. And therefore, since the purely intellectual and materialist life is meaningless, you might as well dedicate your life to that which you cannot really understand.
I mean, you're really digging into something here, like about the absolute truth, right? As almost this like Platonic, metaphysical truth aspect, right? That's something that it's inherently, as almost like given by God, directed by God, as something that is ideal, right? It's something that we can all pursue through a mindset as something being like ideal, something that one should strive towards. It was written in the Metaphysics of Plato that there is always like the ideal hammer, and whatever we have is like a byproduct, and the way to obtain like a wake byproduct of the truth of a hammer, for an example. And whatever the case might be, we always need to strive for a stronger ideal, right? I believe as one comes to this realization, that we always strive towards what is better. And as said by Hans himself, art, right? It's indebatable. What is being produced nowadays in terms of quote-unquote art, that is just abstractivism. It's reductionism. It is like going down to the lowest common denominator and letting a bunch of intellectualist faggots try and interpret what is good. And once you do that, you're falling down into the deep pit of abstractivism, where everything is relative. Everything loses essence. You're losing the very, very clear light that God has indeed provided us with to go in the right direction for civilization.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Spengler wrote about this as well. Now, I take up Spengler a lot because much of what he actually wrote is 100% correct. He wrote that in our civilization, our mentality is just fierce progress, and progress, no matter the costs. Now, in art, right? We basically created every large creation that we could create in the sphere of art. So now what's left is just to destroy it. But now we're coming to the point where there's not really much more to destroy. So you get the pure void that we have now. We can't even destroy that which we inherited, and we can't pass on anything that we inherited as well, because it's destroyed, or it's nothing to create.
Yes, I think that... sorry, go on, Hans.
Yeah, and the modern artists, it's just a circle jerk. abstract is circular, just what Natt said. They have no connection to Logos, they have no connection to Holy Spirit, they have no connection to anything that's independent of their pathetically weak intellect. So you get period blood being shat from tampoons publicly by feminists, and that's arts.
Yeah,
That's what
I
it
think
boils
that
down to.
you guys have brought up, I think, something very important, and I think that we could do, and we ought to do, an entire episode on beauty. And I'm going to take this opportunity just to do some Lonergan posting right now. There was a theologian, a Canadian man from my same town as me, actually, who wrote about the relationship between God and beauty. His name was Bernard Lonergan. I mean, he was a Jesuit, but I think he's correct on this issue. The nature of beauty is that when you look at something that's beautiful, you're drawn outwards from yourself. The center of the ego is no longer fixed on your own internal response, but it's fixed on the object which is projecting beauty. And so this is one of the main reasons why beauty is part of the ultimate form. We say that God is all good, all true, all beautiful. Well, when you engage in a relationship with God, because God by his necessity is beautiful, he uses this as the mechanism to draw you closer to him. This is why the natural world and other beautiful things have been considered to be so sacred and holy. Because by their beauty, they reflect the Logos. They draw us into a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ. I know personally, some of the most profound mystical experiences I've ever had have been admiring the beauty of the natural world. You get to the point where you're looking at the Rocky Mountains, or you're looking at the Pacific Ocean, and it's, oh, there is God. You can see the Logos clearly manifested in the structure and the beauty that you behold. And this, he uses a specific theological term, this is the splendor. This emanates from God's glory. This is the manifestation of his ordered energies in the world. It's a free gift to us from him.
Exactly. And that's also the function of icons in Christianity.
Exactly.
They are literally a window to the divine, because through the beauty, you're connected with God. That's the point of it. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, indeed. And so that's the same thing. And people sometimes accuse Orthodox Catholics of being idolaters. Well, we're idolaters in the sense that a photograph of your mother is the same person as her. An icon is just the same as the natural world. Its beauty and what's depicted there reflects the divine reality, reflects the Logos. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
All right, so I think a good deviation. Let's get back to the main point. So we were talking about the fascist worldview. Okay. So what does the fascist worldview implemented look like? What does a fascist state look like? We see, obviously, historically, there are many different examples. Germany was very different from Croatia, which was different from Romania, which was different from Italy. But there were certain commonalities. So, if the fascist worldview were to be implemented in our current society, what changes would it bring about, and what would the system look like?
I think one of the most immediately obvious and most significant changes is the predominance of hierarchy in all aspects of life. Right now, the organizing principle of our society is democracy, or equality, if you prefer. That, people should have equal responsibilities, equal duties. Everyone has the same rights and the same privileges, and that no one can take these away or change anything about them. Because if anyone has more than anyone else, since everyone is born equal, that means that there is exploitation and thus evil. Whereas when you look at things objectively, or look at things, with respect to the natural order or cosmic order, then you'll say, no, everyone is different, and therefore there must be a cosmic hierarchy, or like a natural biological hierarchy between people. Some people are wiser, some people are stronger, some people are more moral than others. And as such, their social rank, social responsibilities, their rights and their privileges must reflect those, natural aptitudes and the merit that they demonstrated through their actions. That would be the, organizing principle of a fascist society. And it's not just applied to like politics. it's also applied to every other part. It's applied to the family structure. And so, the man is at the helm, and the wife and the children are,
the forging
followers.
of man.
Yes. It's also a part of like the work environment, the government, business, everything. Everything becomes hierarchical. And in everything we say, we try to find the best person possible and say, well, he's the one who leads and other people follow. It's also internalized in people in the sense that just as in society, the best element is at the helm, inside the person, the best element of that person is at the helm. So, the reason is put above, the desires and the physical, the animal aspect of man. And that leads to like the second point, which is that, in our current kind of communistic society, the law is externalized. Like everything is about, do what the central authority says, we're going to smack you over the head with a stick. Whereas in a fascist society, because in each person, like the highest element is in control, we try to strive for internalized law rather than externalized law. In other words, people will have, we want people to have principles and to follow a spiritual law and, make sure that their behavior reflects that law, rather than like letting people think or say or do whatever they want and just like banging them over the head when they
This is actually a core principle of
rules.
Christianity in Paul's theology, is the idea that the law is written in your hearts, that because we have the Holy Spirit, which guides us towards truth, we're released from the stringent conditions of the Mosaic covenant. So we can eat pork and do all of these other things.
Yeah.
And it's the idea, this is also the right idea about how the laws that do exist in the church, the canons, ought to be interpreted. Canons are not landmines that you step on and it blows off your leg and you go to hell forever because you ate meat on Friday. Right? Canons are there to better conform us to the cosmic order, and we don't get to these understandings through tradition and trial and error, basically. And it's the same thing with the state, is naturally there's going to need to be some laws. Even if we have a perfectly virtuous society, it's just human beings that have concupiscence, we're sinful, there's always going to be issues. But, go on.
It doesn't like this trial and error you're talking about in terms of like civilization building. Doesn't that really go hand in hand with the evolutionary track record of every species on Earth, right? The fact that everything we have obtained have been almost like this guideline process as given by God to each individual species, right? The fact that we have this institutional, what do you call it? This indirect
tradition.
Well, not for animals, I hope not, but
No.
we have like this inherent truth, right? That goes with every life on Earth, right? Something that is just there, that is indebatable, right? Something that has brought us to where we are. And again, this really goes together with the idea of God and the cosmic order.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only a will to power, it's a will to truth. And to be true to the truth, you need...
adhering to truth.
Yeah,
Adhering
exactly.
to truth.
And the power is only the tool to adhere to the truth.
Very good point.
Now,
this is very important.
Yeah, Florian, you were talking a bit before about every person's calling and all that stuff. And we can see a trace of that in medieval guilds, right? You had all these traditions for the professions and all that stuff. You were a stonemason, you were a chef, you were an artisan. Now we don't have anything of that. Everything has been bourgeoised, whatever you want to call it. It's all same thing. It's all merchant mentality. It's all merchant smile. It's nothing traditional anymore. You don't inherit anything. Now this was all these traditions, all these guilds, all this stuff. This was basically Logos manifesting in all. And we can still see a trace of this in that if you study different things, you can see traces of the same principles kind of overlapping.
Yeah, and this is very true. And I think that Zeiger, one of the things that people... There's this meme in society, it's one of the memes of modernism, that all hierarchy is bad. and that all hierarchies exist as an abusive relationship. And this is completely untrue. Hierarchy is a neutral thing. Hierarchy can be abusive, but it can also be useful. It can be just. And so the judgment of a hierarchy, or the validity of a hierarchy or an authority, has everything to do with its service, how it executes its function. And so if we look at the angels, the angelic host, every single angel is its own species, and it's in a hierarchy with the other ones. It has its specific function and specific relationship to every single other angel, and they work in harmony. Yeah. They have total conformity to the cosmic order. They fulfill their jobs exactly. And so this is, you even get this reflected in the idea of the Legion of St. Michael the Archangel, is that we want to be like the angels, in that our conformity with the cosmic order is absolute, and the way we relate with each other, though it might be completely hierarchical and there might be complete inequality between us, is ordered for the service of the other. Power doesn't
It might never get to that point, but that's the ideal. That's where we want to go.
Exactly. I mean, the thing that I think is most destructive of all now is the thirst for greatness. Everyone wants to be on top of the pyramid, so to speak. But in order to be on top of the actual pyramid, you should be free, and you can't be free if you're not powerful, and you're not powerful if you're enslaved to your own lusts. So the goal of life isn't necessarily greatness. Greatness is slavery to one's desire to be great for most part. The meaning of life is saintliness.
Let me address something here when you speak of greatness, Hans. This is something that I have been thinking about a lot. And this is going to be a very analogical little thing I'm going to bring out to you boys. So, listen up. I've seen a lot of men, and I've likewise seen myself being drawn into what I like to call the pit of despair, right? We have a burning ambition inside of our mind. We want to see man as more than just another economical peon in a hyper-materialistic society. We see our folk brothers walking around in the streets as these zombie-like drones, with absolutely no determination, no will to survive in their eyes. What we see is a castrated populace everywhere around us. We see people scruffing through trash bags of food. Everything seems hopeless, and while we see our comrades, our potential folk comrades, picking through trash, people who should be our fellow Christians, who we should be embracing, we see our top priorities in society being ensuring the rights of faggots and niggers.
Yeah.
So everything we look at has deep despair. We live in a dystopia. Everything is turned around. Where we see legit problems, they talk about the most minimalistic of problems. They try and remove every problem we have in our society. And now I'm just merely talking about sociological as well as materialistic problems. I'm not only but of course, inherently I'm also talking about the spiritual problem. But here comes what you will call the optimism. Because I'm a dreamer. I will admit to this. I'm inherently a dreamer. Because understand the dynamics of a banner. With no win, with nothing going against the banner will never showcase its idealism, its potential. You will never see the clear sign of a flag with nothing going against it. And as of now, everywhere we look in our society, we see decay, we see decadence, we see everything we despise. But do not let down your faith, my comrades. Do not. Because it is in this one moment in world history that our idealism, the potential, our standard showcases its superiority. Because we see the truth. And the worse everything gets, the harder we shall struggle. Because our ideal, our standard, is without a doubt the one truth that must be placed. And because of this, we shall keep our heads held high, and we shall not falter to modern decadence by no means necessary.
Exactly.
I agree. And the fact that everything around us is so decayed and disgusting makes us, if we have virtue, it makes us look like shining beacons of light and hope to average people.
We had the last bastion. The last vanguard.
Even if you don't tell people that you do all these great things and that you have so much more discipline than they do, they can still see it in your eyes. They can see it in your attitude.
Yeah.
You will appear when you're virtuous. That virtue is, it's obvious to people. In the way you move, in the way you act, in the way you talk, the power emanates. And that gives us charisma, and it makes us more persuasive.
Men will know you are a fascist
obvious.
without you telling them. I've had this happen to me recently, and it was kind of a startling experience. I was with a group of friends of a family member, and I purposefully avoided politics because these were all sort of bourgeois, university intellectuals, and somehow they discerned it anyway.
Well, it's almost like you don't need statistics and spreadsheet papers to prove that you're wrong, that you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like, that people could just look at your body language, the way you move, the way you have your look in your eyes, and they will think to themselves, this guy knows what he's talking about. Because,
Yes.
we are
strong,
beacons.
he looks confident. He's right.
Yeah.
We're beacons of God's will.
What's happening right now is that the wheat is being separated from the weeds, from the thrones, from all that stuff. The golden furnace, whatever you want to call it. Only the pure will remain.
As when this is being said, I only have one thing to say. We are now at the footsteps, and I'm kind of glad to be born in the era that we are born into. We are at the very birth step of total Aryan victory. What we will do in the coming future, for people who are having a direct involvement in the natural resurrection of our peoples, we are the birth givers of total Aryan victory. Now, of course, we will have some people who are not willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, and people who have never sacrificed anything in their life, who think that our people's victory is relying on internet forums, but they will not matter. What we do know is that inside our eyes, inside our minds, inside our hearts, we only believe in total Aryan victory, and we shall have it.
God hates kikes.
So pithy. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that...
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that it's exactly correct. And that as a consequence of being this way, as has already been pointed out, I mean, you're going to suffer. It demands it. And it's only going to get worse as things get more degenerate.
Yeah.
If you're, white Christian heterosex male, and you throw fascist on top of that, this is like the ultimate combination, the ultimate concoction to inflame our opponents. They are going to try to martyr you. We have a couple of articles that attest to this, but make no mistake, they are going to try to kill you. If you adhere to this way of life in the coming years, they will try to kill you. So you have to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Not only that, let me add something extra here. Because if you're in this, right, if you say that truly you are a white revolutionary, you want your people to survive, you want them to be strong, I need you to understand that what you're moving into is not going to be mere Pepe posting and forum posting. If you are dedicated to the survival of our peoples, and if you seriously think that just voting for Trump is going to save your race, reevaluate what you're doing. Sincerely, reevaluate it. Because if we say Donald Trump moves, and you might speak about my move over to Windows, all I have to say is, no, you're not going back to the 50s. It's not happening. That time is gone. Already back then, it was rotten. You're not getting back to the 50s. You're not going to have baseball and apple pie ever again. That time is long gone. So, reevaluate what you're doing. Reevaluate your neoconservative ideas. Reevaluate them. You're not going to get it back. So, what you have to reevaluate and reconsider inside your mind is, do you want to restructure your nation in such a way that your people has a future? If you're not capable of doing this, if you're not capable of going through the discomfort, the sincere discomfort of realizing that everything around you is dying, if you're not capable of doing that, don't get into politics. We don't need you. We don't need you to be another moderate spewing the same shit, spreading bad news porn we already know. Everybody knows it. Yeah, statistics, yeah, they're public information. You're not a fucking beacon of information, you stupid fuck. So what you have to do is reevaluate. Are you capable? Are you willing to go into the struggle? Because, trust me, this is not a fun struggle. Because our enemies, they will go for your family. They'll go for your job. They will not have any gloves on when they're dealing with you. They will view you as the worst of filth. But when you realize this, and you realize how much they hate you, realize that you must hate them back just as much. Because the more you get struggle against you, the more they resist towards you, and the more resistance they showcase, that truly shows that you're right. Your idealism becomes even more confirmed through their struggle.
Yeah.
So realize that. It's not fun. I've faced the consequences, and you will too.
Exactly. And I mean, people must be prepared to when the shit hits the fan. People need to be able to head into the woods and live there for 10, 20, 30 years until we've achieved victory. And that's the mentality you must have.
Well, no, that's a defensive strategy. We're not going to go to the fucking
When I'm
woods.
saying living, I don't
I think that
mean
what he's suggesting is more that we have to be militant. We have to be
of
we have
course.
to be militant in everything we do.
in a legal
there's
and recreational way, of course.
Of course, naturally, all legal purposes, etc.
Yeah, of course. PT, we're not talking about armed insurrection here. We're not talking about doing anything, feds. Don't worry. Just normal, democratically minded people.
I mean, there's only
Well,
one.
for now it's activism, but, it's going to be defensive very soon.
Yeah.
Well, they do say that the best means of defense is attacking, so we'll see how it goes.
Powerful offense is the best defense, but I've heard both.
Yeah, so we've gotten to the end of our first hour. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to resume the conversation right where we leave off. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Hour 2 of Mysterium Fasces. Thank you for listening. We're going to continue our discussion on fascism, and we'll start with, I think, the organic state. So, Zyger, what is the organic state?
Well, the organic state is, I've already, I think, defined it in the sense that the organic state is a state in which the social order is a reflection of the natural or cosmic order. In other words, it's a state in which people, like each person, is aware of his role in the natural order of his nation, his society, and does his best to fulfill that role. That implies that because, again, like we've said previously, there's an internal law, and that people will kind of do their best and will be educated to go in that direction, that there's not going to be quite as much outside pressure to conform to specific social norms.
Less violence, you're saying, basically.
Yes. Obviously, in order to reach that, there has to be a phase in which there will be violence, in the sense that usually the concept of the organic state happens or can be implemented after a period of authoritarian government, in which people are basically forced to abandon their sinful ways. But the ideal is that eventually that won't be necessary anymore. And I don't think that the authoritarian phase needs to last very long. Maybe just one generation is enough. But yeah, the organic state, I think, in simple terms and quickly explain, that's what you would define it as.
So the organic state is sort of like the body of Christ. Everyone is supposed to have their position in the body. A hand isn't supposed to be a foot, and the foot isn't supposed to be a hand.
Yeah, and I think that this is another thing that really kind of blew my mind when I found it out. Fascism is always described as a totalitarian ideology. And then when I actually started looking at fascism and I realized, well, the organic state, well, that's like exactly what I believed in, but I didn't have words for it. And it kind of really it contradicts so much the propagandistic image of fascism as, for total government control in every single aspect of your daily life. And once it was explained to me that these periods of big state or deep state or large state is in order to kind of reform and redirect society into a more natural and organic path, then you would shed the edifices on the exterior. While there are still risks and hazards associated with it, made a lot more sense.
Yeah, obviously, there are other ways that you can reach the organic state, and there were organic states in the past, and they were not necessarily attained through totalitarian methods. But the reason why we want the totalitarian method is because the alternatives are much more destructive and painful. A natural organic state happens after a long period of strife and pain and destruction. Like, let's say that our current modern order disintegrates because of economic and social and racial reasons. There's probably going to be a long period of chaos in which food is scarce, people are disorganized, all the infrastructure is no longer functional, and many people will die, and only the people who are most in tune with nature, the strongest, the wisest, will survive and prosper. And that will lead naturally to an organic state, kind of like you had in the Middle Ages and things like that, in feudalism. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
But
feudalism is a good example, because feudalism is maybe the most perfect example in a Western context of an organic state in action. But feudalism was forged out of a period of immense suffering. The breakdown of Central Roman authority in the Occident, combined with the invasion of Islam, and then the Viking raiders from the north, produced the so-called Dark Ages, but a period of about 250 years that were really, really, really shitty.
Yes, yeah. And we don't want that because that would probably lead to a loss of most of our historical accomplishments, of our art, of our culture, and of our historic nations. So obviously we're nationalists. We want to preserve our national heritage, our history, our art, and but yet we still want the organic state. So totalitarianism is a tool, and obviously it's a dangerous tool, like you've mentioned, but it's a tool to say maybe we can have both. Maybe we can preserve our nations and still shed all of this degeneracy and attain a state of organic existence. It's I think it's the most noble course of action that anyone who loves both his nation and the truth can engage in. But of course, it's also the hardest one.
I mean, another thing I think people must understand right now is that we just can't go back to how it was before. If we do that and, go all agrarianism right now, we will be steamrolled by the Americans or by Soviet Russia or whatever power that just wants to expand and have more power. So what we need to do is to become powerful, create a machine and crush all the other machines without ourselves being corrupted by the thirst for power. Julius Evola wrote a bit about this in, I think it was, what was the book called again? Mystery of the Grail, that the difference between the hero and the titan is that the hero's goal is to restore the truth, restore the cosmic order, while the titan just wants to be powerful. The titan stands for Caesarism, the hero stands for New Age.
Yeah, and I think that's, if you look at Jesus Christ, he is, of course, the Logos, the cosmic archetype. And the thing that is unique about Jesus Christ in comparison to all other heroic tales of overcoming is Christ, because he's the high priest, is both the sacrifice and the victim. So rather than slaying the dragon to overcome its evil, he slays sin itself through his own death.
And Hans, you mentioned Caesarism again. I remember you mentioning that in the previous episode too. And something I also found interesting, because you said that the Titan is Caesarism and the heroes for the New Age. But, you've read your Spengler too, but a lot of what Caesarism tries to do is to reclaim some of that glory of old. One of the biggest traits of Caesarism is a second religiousness and a doubling down, a reinforcing on laws that involve supporting family formation and punishing degeneracy.
Yes, exactly, but it would be a very, very frigid form at best. Now, within this frigid form, this very, very rigid form, you can still have power competition. Oh, but I want to be at top, and la 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 la. You can see this in the later Roman Empire.
Yeah.
There was so many power competitions that the whole empire just collapsed. Same thing in later Islam.
Yes. One of the great ironies about this is we can see this in the life of the Emperor Constantine. Constantine basically had three phases in his life. After he had the experience of the Kiro, the Battle of Milvian Bridge, and became emperor in the West, he had this kind of youthful phase where he behaved very much like other Roman emperors, except for his religious toleration towards Christianity. But later on in Constantine's life, something very unfortunate happened. Constantine had been married before he became emperor, and he fathered a son, Crispus. And Crispus was brilliant, masterful tactician, rode and fought in battle with his father, and many times Constantine only prevailed over his enemies, like in the engagement with Licinius, because of Crispus's tactical genius. And so Constantine remarried, and he had several other sons by his second wife. I can't recall her name at the moment. And basically his second wife conspired against him. She tried to convince him that Crispus had made lewd advances on her. And he sent the order for Crispus to be detained and to be executed. And later on, I think he spoke to his priest, and he realized how hasty he had acted, and he changed his mind. But it was too late. The guards had executed Crispus. So, he killed his wife, obviously. Wow. But that's why Constantine built so many cathedrals and so many beautiful churches in his later life, is because he was, in a sense, mourning, contrite for that action. So that just goes to show you that even with Jesus Christ, Caesarism is a very, very dangerous.
I think you misunderstand what Caesarism means. Caesarism isn't just, you have a guy at top. Caesarism is the late stage of a civilization, as Spengler described it. where there's not really anything more to create. It's just a void, and it's just a will to power.
Indeed. Now, so I think we've kind of covered and we understand what an organic state is. An organic state is one which conforms to the natural order, and so it has no fixed parameters. It exists as large as it needs to be in order to serve the needs of the people that it represents. And so ideally, the state would be as small as possible. It's best, in fact, if social disputes and other forms of arbitration are conducted polycentrically among the people.
Yes, I think naturally an organic state will tend towards being small because the type of, when you have the best people at the top, those people are not interested in micromanaging the actions of the people below. They just don't care about these things. If you look at the Middle Ages and like feudalism, the lords had absolutely no interest in managing the affairs of the peasants. It was like a duty that they were foisted upon them, and they had no interest in it. So most of the time, the peasants had to manage themselves. And, you know, often the peasants didn't like it. They would have preferred if the lords were, you know, more present and would like implement laws and things like that. But, you know, lords were warrior classes. They were like strong people who preferred to go out and, you know, lay siege to their competitors' castles and things like that. So it's interesting that when you have a hierarchy, the best people are the ones who don't want to have a large state and control everything. Whereas today, in, you know, a communist type system, you have very low quality people at the top, and those people are like insecure, and they want, you know, more power because they know that they have a low human quality, and because of that, they want to like control everything and make sure that nothing happens without their knowledge or consent. Again, because of their insecurities and things like that.
Yeah, and I
think that's interesting.
Yes, exactly. And I think that one of the things, there's two things that definitely increase the level of violence in a state. One is the quality of people. If you're dealing with stupid people, you need to use a lot more violence in order to keep everybody civil. Africa is a magnificent example of this principle in action. And the second is, the more artificial your ideology is, the more artificial your system of governance is, the more dissonant it is with reality, the more violence you need to use to keep people in adherence to it. That's why communism in Russia in the 20s and 30s was so violent. It was basically a continual civil war until after World War II.
Yeah.
Moving on. So let's talk about the fascist economic system. This is a question that I was most ambiguous about and had been trying to find answers for years and years, trying to get a National Socialist to just sit down and tell me what his economic views were. But I've come to understand that it's a little bit less specific than that. Perhaps you could elaborate, Sagar.
Very, very unspecific.
Sure. Well, I mean, for us, because of our worldview, we don't put emphasis on economics, because for us, economics are a means to an end, not an end in itself. Because what is the purpose of economics? The purpose of economics is to organize, you know, the production of a society, you know, to create as much wealth as possible. And obviously, you know, it's good to have wealth. It's good to produce things, but we don't view production of material goods as the highest good in human affairs, and thus, any kind of economic notion is going to be will have to submit to a higher conception of what is, you know, the good, the public good. So there is no specific economic system, though obviously I think, you know, scientifically, free markets are what probably lead to the most productivity in terms of production of goods and services.
Yeah.
But since we don't view that as the highest good, we say like, okay, by default, it might be free markets, but there's very important things that have to be controlled. Now, these specific things that have to be controlled will depend on the circumstances, but we can give a few examples and things that I think will be pretty constant over the circumstances. One thing that is important might be controls over technological innovations. Because when you allow, you know, any kind of weapon to be made, any kind of electronic gadget, any kind of device that has social implications, well, these things can lead to total social destruction. Like today, we have cell phones or like virtual reality and things like that. That, if uncontrolled, those things can have huge social consequences. They can really ravage things. You know, think of if you had like virtual reality porn and escapism with World of Warcraft type entertainment. This is very destructive. So if we say, we should allow the free market to sell anything they want, well, the best strategy to sell things is to exploit human weakness and human sin, because when people have a choice, they'll always go for the easiest thing. That's inherently destructive, and so inherently it would have to be controlled in some way. Specifically how it would be done, we don't know. It's not like that. It would be autistic to go to the details of what practically would be done, but that's one example of the sort of thing that would be important to implement. Another small example might be advertising, for pretty much the same reasons. Advertising is just a way to increase consumption of things that people don't actually need. So there's no real purpose for it.
May I come with a quick, just to simplify it?
Yes.
If I may. I think what people need to understand is, in terms of economics, it's really all based on situation, right? For example, let's say that we get our fascist Wonderland 2.0, something we all want inherently. Of course, we will say, we are pragmatic people. We want the best for the organism, right? Of course, we want the organism to be well-being and functioning, and of course, we will allow whatever economical functions. They allow the best well-being for the organism. However, for example, if we say there is a large demand, for an example, for interracial cock porn or kitty porn, of course the state will say, this is not very this is not very good for the fundament of man, the condition of man. So of course we are going to ban that. So what you need to understand is that fascism does not merely deal with economical terms, and if you only think of fascism in economical terms, rethink what you're doing. What you need to think, and I'm going to bring out a keyword for you guys, so you will understand what essentially fascism is. Fascism is dealing with the condition of man. Yeah, that's right, the condition of man. Keep that in your mind as we go along.
No, it's a very good point.
That we're not just going to ban porn. We're going to execute all porn producers.
Wow, yeah, that's a minimal detail. It's a minimalistic detail. I mean, I'm sorry. Who's gonna mourn? Who's gonna mourn that sleazy fuck living on the second floor of that office building? That's all I have to say.
Hey, Goyim, you need to loosen up a little. Yeah, here's some interracial porno to make you not be so Puritan.
We're going to get into this in a bit. We've got some interesting stories to cover on this in a little bit. But
just like how when Trump did his speech and he named the globalists, the international bankers, the fucking kikes just came out and named themselves. They're like, anytime you speak out against globalists or bankers, it's anti-Semitism. So I'm guessing,
what a coincidence.
We start talking about executing porn producers, automatically they're all going to come out the woodwork, fucking oy veying and gewalting, schwitzing all over the place.
Well, the vanguard of them were actually Jews. You can look it up.
Still are.
Well, that is true. A lot of porn producers are Jews. That is true.
Yeah, most of them are Jews, and I think the rest of them are like Italian mafia, like the minority.
Let's add some echo to that. Italian.
Oh yeah, just like how the fucking Russian mafia is also led by Jewish oligarchs.
Let's likewise add some echo to that. Russian.
Yeah,
indeed.
I mean, this just highlights the Jewish mentality as well. They want to corrupt. They want to destroy.
Well, that guy. We're not Jewish. We're actually Italian, that guy.
It reminds me of
Don't you see my salami? My kosher salami?
It fucking reminds me of god damn it! Now I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. But I think that, it's been pretty well summed up what we believe. I think the general attitude is exactly what I adhere to. It's obvious markets are the best tool for producing wealth. That's a fact. But wealth is a means to an end. And so we want our people to be prosperous. We want our people to, have enough money to raise themselves and to provide for their family and have nice things. But that's secondary.
Can I bring up two words?
Yeah. Sure.
Two words for people to really bite onto if they are to understand fascism and economics. We are not principled when it comes to economics. We are merely pragmatical, right? We really care about the pragmatics of economics. We don't strictly to adhere to a economical model as it is some sort of religion. We merely adhere to what is pragmatical. If the situation demands it, the economical structure will be switched, right? We will change the economical model according to what is needed. So we do not strict on to any sort of economical structure like it is our religion. What people need to understand is that we merely view economical models as a tool and nothing more. We have not based our entire ideology around something as meager and pathetic as a
Toasters.
tool. No, we're not based on toasters, and we are not willing to die for toasters. If you truly are to understand what we are talking about, let me bring out another 3 words for you, okay? I'm first going to bring out 2 words. Condition of man and pragmatism. That is our economical model. If you are to truly understand the condition of man, let me bring out another 3 words for you. God, folk, and fatherland. If you do not understand this, if you had no adherence to what is you, to what your identity is, and where your entire basis of this world is, well, get the fuck out of politics. Or read up on what you're doing. Reevaluate your stance.
Yeah,
Exactly.
people who are interested in like the nitty-gritty of quasi-fascistic economic systems, you can check out like distributivism is a good example. Many Catholic authors, G.K. Chesterton, etc., have written on this. And it's basically the idea that the means of production ought to be owned by the widest swath of people possible, and stuff like that.
One thing I think that's an important concept that's very rarely kind of mentioned is the word autarky.
Ah, yes.
And I think that's
What
not
does that
directly...
mean? What does that mean?
Autarky means total independence, economic independence of a country or a nation of outside, forces. So this is like, if you bring the word autarky to any modern political gathering, it's like you're like the devil, basically. They're like, holy shit, that's fascism. That's literally like, in terms of economics, this is it's like throwing holy water in the face of a vampire. Because autarky is very important because, if you're a nationalist, if you believe that a nation should be under its own control, and obviously if you believe in the natural order, then obviously the nation is one of the very important units of that order. So you say, well, the nation should not be dependent on foreign interests for its basic needs. And most of the fascist governments in the past have put a lot of emphasis on autarky. So, for example, the Germans, they would create artificial petroleum out of coal, because there was no petroleum in Germany, but they did have coal. So they did that transformation, which is not like economically efficient in some ways, but having the ability to do that is, very helpful. Because when you have different nations that are interdependent in terms of economics, they're going to start making compromises on their principles.
Typically
and their
speaking,
positions.
oil is a big one where it comes down to. But it implies the biggest thing to be autarkic in is food, your food supply.
Yes.
Because if you're reliant on importation of food, you're a slave. And this has brought down many, many regimes in the past. Rome is a great example. Rome was completely reliant on food supply, and so if international trade was disrupted, the city would riot in a couple of days. And it's the same thing in New York. Modern United States cities, because they operate on next day delivery systems. There's only about 72 hours worth of food in the warehouses of any given city.
That's kind of scary when you think about it.
I mean, it's actually practical information. Let me bring out a bit of a practical thing if people are wondering about things. I can tell you that the average major city only has a food supply of approximately 2 to 5 days. Now, Imagine if infrastructure in a nation got destroyed, right? If somebody blew up some bridges, some train stations, or some power supply stations, or some water depots. Imagine what would happen. I mean, I'm just saying that if people don't have the comforts of Western civilization, it got, abruptly robbed from them. Let's just say people will be very, very eager to reconsider their stance on egalitarianism. Let's just put it that way.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not suggesting that people do anything. I'm just bringing up the information that, Western civilization and the comforts of Western civilization and modern societies, very easy to tip over.
Well, exactly. And I think one of the most important inventions of the 20th century was refrigeration. Because refrigeration enables next-day delivery systems. In the past, in a traditional society, inventory keeping, stock keeping is a skill. Because you need to correlate the demand that you're going to have with the supply that you're going to bring in. And things have a certain shelf life. And, how much food do you actually are going to need to be able to sustain long periods of time? And if your supply gets cut off, how much do you want to have stockpiled? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in modern times with Walmart, it's automatic. There's not even somebody that orders it. At Walmart, they have a computer that says, there's 100 units, and once it gets below 30, it automatically places an order to the distribution center for them to send more the next morning. Yeah. And so that's why Walmart stock never runs low. But this next-day delivery system, which was pioneered by Walmart, is reliant on a huge international infrastructure network. Everything from the Chinese factories to the boats that transport the goods, to the roadways in the United States, to the computers, the electricity that backs it up, to the people themselves, it's all dependent on all of these factors. So if you get failure at any one point, you disrupt the end product.
Yeah, and when you...
Very fragile.
Yeah, and then you have to take it by force. And we can see that this happens in different ways in the national scale as well. I mean, a nation like Great Britain, the Anglos, they didn't expand by land as the Germans did to make themselves independent. The British created a colonial empire, and they were good at it. That was their way of getting autarky. And that's dependent on their circumstances. They were an island nation, they were a mercantile people. So they used the trade.
Let me say something here. And this is going back to the topic of economics again. Now, imagine if your people, right, and I know a lot of you people who listen to this, you have great ambitions for your peoples and your nations, right? The way you pursue yourself, how you see yourself. Imagine that your people and your entire nation was not a giant whore state, right? Where you had to prostitute your standards to comfort others, where you could sustain yourself. I mean, I, for one, find that idea very, very appealing, that you don't have to prostitute your standards and your fatherland's integrity to appease some third world vermin to bread feed you.
Yes. I think that's why the idea of autarky is important beyond just the economic considerations. It's spiritually important for both a man and a nation to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, exactly. And there has to be a closed system at some level. I mean, even if we look at the nature of the divinity is a system, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Same substance, but they relate to each other. The absolute relates to itself in a perfect, controlled, organic system. And so likewise, our nations have to be the same way. That means that, the nation doesn't fail itself. And even if the world turns against it, it can produce enough food necessary to run its day-to-day operations indefinitely. It can produce enough critical industrial goods to sustain, the functioning of day-to-day life. Of course, luxury items are irrelevant, but you need to have that baseline, or you're enslaved. You're dependent to some outside source to sustain you and your country. So yeah, and I think that...
Let me attack our listeners' pride here for a second, if you will allow me, Flo.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Now, let me ask you something. Are people, right? Now I'm specifically talking about the piss faces. Those yellow-skinned maggots. They're so self-prepared to proclaim themselves as being the main producers and industrializers of this modern world. Do you really want these fucking animal abusers? These people who are next to genetic fuck waste? These yellow-skinned small piss-skins to determine your fatherland's future? You, an Aryan man. Yeah, you. Fucking sitting there listening. You're probably doing something in the background. You're just sitting here casually listening. I know, you might be walking around, right? You're sitting there, you're walking around, you're probably in a grocery store, you're walking down to the bus station, whatever you might be doing. You might be enjoying life, listening, playing some video games. Think this to yourself for a fucking second. Do you want some yellow-skinned some fucking street shitter to determine your future? Do you want your leaders to take into the consideration of these subhumans' interests? Are you being serious? Does the fucking free market mean so much to you? More freedoms? That's not freedom. That's financial slavery. And you're being delusional.
But Natt, don't you understand that if we get rid of free trade, iPhones will be like $2,000?
But Natt,
aren't they already?
Those Asians and Indians, they have a higher average IQ than even white people.
But they don't look like they have so, because they live in fucking straw huts.
That's
not an argument.
Yeah, the other problem is they're fucking hive mind robots too.
Yeah. They're kind of like the Zerg from StarCraft. Like, imagine an entire population with autism. Yeah, that's Asians for you.
I mean, that's kind of what the future that the people in power want us to be now. Coffee color race of mutts who will just work in the factories and be like drones.
No, actually, the factories is not the future, dude. The factories are not the future. They want us to be working for the state in welfare offices where we can... They imagine that the future will be guided by, factory works, and the private sector will be replaced with robotics, right? But what they fail to realize is, of course, the fact that, we're getting this new AI technology referred to as the Watson, if you've ever heard about it. This AI technology that is capable of, like, replacing workers inside the medical facilities. It's like this artificial intelligence. They can pretty much do customer service. So what people are not realizing is that technology is going to replace a lot of segments of society. Industry, academics,
warfare,
even medicine.
Medicine, warfare. One of the great things is as technology advances, the crew necessary to be on a large naval vessel decreases exponentially. If you've got AI that's running many of these systems, then you can cut crew sizes in half. You might only need 100 people to run a full carrier, right? Which is incredible. It's incredible to think.
Kind of scary in a way.
Well, what we have to reevaluate, right, is the fact that the age of mass reproduction might be at its end, right? We don't need more third worlders. We don't need more people who cannot, like, do things. So, technologically, right, we are at a certain point. So, what people
thus
said
we see the end goal, the real end goal, which is just to exterminate all racial differences.
Oh, just to exterminate mankind in general. Because ultimately, like, by a certain point, right? A certain point, as technology keeps expanding, we're going to be at such a point where we realize that man in itself is inefficient. And at some point, we are going to become irrelevant to economical expansion.
You reminded me of something that they say on the Red Pill subreddit.
We're no longer valuable. We're no longer...
The end goal of the liberal is to brain alone on a pile of skulls that used to be the human race, tweeting about how awful the smell is before smashing his own head on a rock for being more privileged than the rock.
Wow.
Well, and that is where we're going.
I think that you actually bring up a good point. One of the traditional theories of economics is that population growth is equated with economic prosperity. But with the advancing degree of mechanization, that's actually not the case. You don't need a large population to sustain a very sophisticated and advanced industrial economy anymore, because robots, man.
Oh, it's even going to get worse. I mean, we're not even at this point. It's like this tweet I saw: Zuckerberg's vision of the future, mulatto underclass, clicking on sponsored content all day, ruled over by an autistic Jew Asian elite with Soylent as the only legal food and child pornography as the most popular entertainment. That is the end game, the end goal that the elites have for us before eventually everyone just exterminates ourselves in a murder-suicide ritual in the name of glorious secular humanism.
This is the end goal of materialism. And the people who are in charge, the kikes, are materialistic to their very nature. Yeah, I mean, I read an example of what the Jews used to do in the Middle Ages. They would hire, in the late Middle Ages, they would hire people, Catholic people, who would hide a communion wafer in their tongue, right? And they would buy this wafer, consecrated, of course. And with this wafer, they would turn it to small pieces, small, dust, basically, or whatever you call it. And they would try to use this stuff to conjure it. They would destroy Logos itself, crucify Jesus again, and try to conjure with the remains.
I think that this is I hadn't planned on going here so early, but it's a natural transition into Kali Yuga news. This is, of course, very spooky. I wish we could get a Radio Free Skyrim style drop for this.
Well, we could just. Well, we're gonna make it. We're gonna work on it. Post editing. We're gonna make it happen.
Excellent. But yeah, so
Kali, find a video
Kali
on
Yuga
how
news.
to make soundboards. I'll get one.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. Anyway, but this is one of the stories that I was going to cover last, but I'm going to cover it first because Hans has so naturally transitioned into the subject. So this is actually a fairly old article, but it is quite relevant to what he was just talking about. So this is from churchmilitant.com. This is dated the 24th of November 2015. City Council in Spain supports sacrilegious art is the headline. 240 consecrated hosts were obtained by sacrilegious communion and profanely displayed as art on city property with support of the town council. The city council in Pamplona, known for its annual running of the bowls, is staffed by radical left-wing Basque separatist coalition called Bildu. The city council hired artist Abel Azcona, don't know if it echoes or not, to make an art exhibit in their gallery on city property. Azcona then acquired 240 consecrated hosts by repeatedly pretending to receive communion in the hand while attending Catholic masses. He photographically documented these sacrilegious communions and posted them on his Twitter page. In August, openly homosexual Azcona arranged these hosts artistically on the ground to form the word pederastia, Spanish for a sexual act between a man and a boy. He also posted photos of this on his Twitter page. The exhibit, titled Buried, was presented by Maider Baloki, a councilwoman from the city's Department for Culture. The hosts were laid out on display until a private citizen rescued them from the art exhibit.
This is what you fought for.
News.
Yes. Well, this is literally black magic. This is what people did in the Middle Ages when they were doing their magic. They used Catholic rituals and concepts, and they kind of reversed them for their means. Like they would excommunicate things they don't like, or they would exorcise things that they wanted to destroy, stuff like that. Or they would do like the mass, but like in reverse or things like that.
Yeah, if you actually if you read Aleister Crowley's Liber X rubric for the Gnostic Mass, that's basically what they do. I recorded an episode on this for Fascist World History back in the day. You can check it out. It's actually under the David Bowie episode, but we cover Aleister Crowley. Yeah, this is what they do. I mean, these people crucify Jesus Christ.
I really wish that my grandpa was still alive, because I'd say, hey, Grandpa, check this out. Yeah, this is what you fought the Germans for.
Yeah. And it's like, it's difficult for me to read articles like this because these people, ought to be put to death, right? And then the town council funds it. This is the country of Franco, right?
And we have this stuff. We have this stuff in Sweden as well. Well, no surprise, we're literally the Sodom of the world by now. We had an exhibition called Ecce Homo. Now this expedition was a photographer that took photographs of some guy acting like Jesus, and he was with AIDS people and homos and these furries and all this retarded shit, and they were in all kinds of poses, and it was just sacrilegious. It was disgusting. You can look it up on Google probably. It's really, really
infuriating.
Yeah,
now,
it really is.
Like, you guys have no idea about the belligerence of Scandinavian atheists.
Yeah.
You have no idea. You have no idea about how fucking belligerent and humiliating they can be towards people of the true faith.
Yeah.
Well,
They
when
are
Christianity, when we have backed off, right? When we backed off in the secularist society, they did not stop. They do not stop. They will keep humiliating you. They will keep pissing on everything you find valuable. If you say, well, maybe, abortion is like, children, murdering children, they will say, oh, you stupid idiot. They'll humiliate you in whatever means they can. They will showcase pictures of Jesus getting sodomized. They will do whatever they can to humiliate everything you love.
They are so pretentious, it's insane. I mean, if you talk with these people, you can literally feel the hate oozing over to you. That's happened so many times. It's insane. You literally feel the hate. You can't explain it. It's just fucking weird.
Life. They hate life.
You literally feel the hate.
And it makes you sick. Because, these people, they have nothing in their eyes. They're empty. Empty eyes.
You thought you hate niggers? These atheists hate you more than you could ever imagine. Compared to your hate for niggers or monkeys, all these people, that's like fatherly love.
Even then, one could say that our hate for niggers is just the same hate we have for a disobedient animal that keeps pissing on the fucking rug.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, these people...
Well, that's the thing with niggers. They're as big of a problem as we make them. If we actually didn't have black people in our countries, then we would literally have to deal with none of the negative effects.
Precisely.
Then we wouldn't have...
Bobo, the only reason Bobo is here is because we allow him to be here. And the only one we can really get mad at, right, is because of our politicians. If our politicians didn't allow Bobo to piss and shit on the rug, there would be no problem.
What is the Koreano quote? If I had a gun with 2 bullets and there was a traitor and an enemy in front of me, I would shoot the traitor twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Bobo is a punishment. I mean, Bobo is just a punishment that's tried from God himself. And the fact that we have Bobo here proves, if anything, that God exists. Because the punishment is the way we find God now.
He's Bobo is essentially the locust, right? He's the one who's destroying everything. He is the locust.
Exactly.
And once we realized that Bobo and the black Muslim swine Mohammed, the Muslim pig, well, they're here as a punishment from God to wake the man. They're trying to... Essentially, I do believe that God is like telling us, hey, Whitey, wake the fuck up.
Shock therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you not know that God punishes the wicked? God disciplines those whom he loves.
But Richard Spencer told me. But Richard Spencer.
I mean that's why sodomy is so disgusting as well, because that's a free choice. You can't blame anyone else for that shit. It's your own choice, and you do it because you're a weak, pathetic faggot.
Indeed.
But haven't you heard that bug chasing is actually because of people like us, because we judge them, our small...
Well, they should continue to bug chase then, so they die in AIDS.
No, but that's not gonna happen, because the thing is, because of us, right? People like us, a small, minimalistic part of our population, because they might have read one tweet or one comment on Facebook somewhere. Because of that, they're actually the reason why they get AIDS. They're very sensitive like that,
And it's interesting, and this kind of goes into the next article. Byline. Pornography actor opens up porn university for aspiring adult film performers. From the New York Daily News. It is the current year, boys.
I'm smart. I have a degree.
and you just know...
It's the current year. White men will get fucked in the rear.
God, and you just know, though, it's just mostly going to be a bunch of desperate fucking loser men who probably have criminal records going to that fucking college anyway.
Is this a 3-year program, and how do they do the examinations?
An Italian porn actor and director is starting an academy to teach aspiring adult film actors and actresses the tricks of the trade.
Italian!
And aptly names his training session Porn University. Rocco Siffredi, nicknamed the Italian Stallion, will document his training in the reality show Universie del Porno. Paraphil.com reports.
Now, as to the examinations, I think I'm going to quote, what was it? You ever heard of the band Pornosonic? They make porn music, and they're actually pretty great. But I'm just going to quote a line from one of their songs. It's like, okay, ladies, well, this exam is going to be 30% oral, 20% written, and 50% anal.
Wait, 2 seconds. It's fucking Rocco Siffredi? Jesus, dude, the Italian stallion? Yeah, the reason I know about this guy is because of E Fucked.
Yes, I love E Fucked. Hey,
I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but yeah, it's Rocco Siffredi, and it doesn't surprise me that this guy opens this fucking shit. Listen, the guy's
it's gonna be Facial Abuse Academy, dude.
Like, this guy is a broken piece of shit, and I think that whatever Rocco does is to be taken with a gram of salt, alright? I'm gonna say this. Like,
classes will be in session on the set of Siffredi Hard Academy, in which porn veteran will instruct a group of 21 hopefuls on different techniques and tactics on how to be a believable porn actor on screen.
It's gonna be like this, dude. It's gonna be like my degenerate Dan's Italian buddy skit. He's gonna be like, yeah, so here's what you gotta do, man. When you take this girl here, you gotta slap the shit out of her face until her cheeks are all red so she don't need as much makeup, and then you choking her. And after you're done abusing the bitch and she's got a 1,000-yard stare, you just need to remember, this is what happens when you don't have strong male role models.
Like, listen, like, all I have to say about this case is, like, Rocco Siffredi himself could not even stay in a monogamous relationship. Like, he tried actually to do this. Like, this guy's a broken man, and he's not something to aspire for at all. Again, I read up on the guy. Again, he's an international celebrity, so I read up on him, and he's a piece of shit. Trust me, he's a piece of shit, and he's nothing to aspire for.
But hey, he's 52,
but I think that
and he fucks 18-year-olds.
I think that this guy is actually the lesser evil to the next woman I'm going to talk about. Now, this is from Breitbart.com. Of course, we're referring it through archive.org because you should boycott Breitbart as per the holy instructions of Grand Mufti Anglin in his fatwa against Milo and Breitbart. But anyway, I digress. Byline, schools should show teenagers pornography and get them to analyze it like they would a Jane Austen novel, a BBC presenter has said.
The people who
Hans,
support this shit...
You have to actually let me read some of the article.
Yeah,
Dame Jenny Murray, who has presented BBC Radio's for Woman's Hour for nearly 30 years, called for sex education to be combined with biology, and for schools to teach a separate subject called gender education. Speaking at the Cheltenham Literary Festival, the veteran presenter said a change in education was needed due to the ease with which children have access to online pornography. She told the audience, we give our kids Jane Austen novel to read and say, okay, let's analyze it. We might show them a news bulletin that has been on television the night before. Why not show them pornography and teach them how to analyze it? You put boys and girls together in a class and you show them a pornographic film and you analyze it exactly the same way as you teach to read all of the other cultures around them. School kids would be allowed to discuss what they had seen, so they realized normal women do not behave like those in the films, etc., etc. And so yeah, what we need to do is we just need to show people, need to show like 13, 14-year-olds gay porn and get them to write essays.
Fucking
Jesus
I mean, that's what I
Christ.
was about to say. The only people who would support this shit are pedos themselves. I mean, what kind of teacher would be comfortable with this? Well, only a
I think that this is, in my opinion, when this stuff comes from women, it typically is extreme virtue signaling. And that's what you get, actually, I think you get some of the strangest and craziest, like, rhetoric from women, because they don't intend to do it. Like, it's completely a fantasy for them.
Oh, but remember, Goy, abstinence training just doesn't work. You're not supposed to tell that to kids. You gotta teach them how to use butt plugs and condoms.
It's just insane.
And you gotta show them gay porn.
No, but
we have to
Russia
accept alternate lifestyles. And teach them.
You mean death styles?
Yeah, no
Death
shit.
style.
It is just a death cult after all.
Can I do one thing before we continue?
Please.
Just gonna give a few shout outs here. I once again employ everyone. I really suggest that you listen to Common Filth's podcast, one of the best podcasts in the world. I mean, Common Filth is good. He's not as good as me, but he's next to me in some terms. So I suggest you all listen to Common Filth's podcasts, and I suggest that you all buy some of his stickers. Let me suggest 2 of his stickers that he's released so far. White girls fuck dogs. Buy them now. Put them up at your universities. Attack those fucking liberal cunts. And likewise buy his ignore sodomite orders. Buy them now. Excellent stickers. Buy them.
Thank you for the shout out, Natt. You know what? Let's just do a general shout out. I want to say thanks to the TRS Confederates. They're a stand-up group of guys. Yeah, God bless them all. Please go listen to Rebel Yell with our friend Masonius Rufus. Hopefully him and some other guests will be on the show soon to discuss theonomy, as one of our commenters suggested. So that should be very interesting. Look forward to that, perhaps next week. But yeah, no, I think that very important to thank those who need to be thanked.
Of course, I mean we don't piss on the hands on the people who give us a hand, as we say. We sincerely believe in a strong unity with those who believe and preach the strong ideals of fascism and who actually adhere to the one true faith. And as such, we shall always lend a hand to those who support us. Indeed.
So, moving on, this is an article from dailystormer.com. I have entitled the little note here, "They Will Come For You." The article reads, in Germany, an 87-year-old woman going back to prison for denying nonsensical Jew lampshade hoax. I really like Andrew England's bylines. In Germany, there are a lot of freedoms people have that they don't have in other countries. For example, you can gang rape women and not be punished. You're also allowed to gang rape women and beat old people on trains. That's a big freedom. At the same time, elderly women get sentenced to prison for thinking the wrong thoughts about historical events. It's really a give and take. An 87-year-old longtime right-wing extremist has been sentenced to jail once again for making statements denying the Holocaust from The Local. Ursula Haferbeck-Wetzel, 87, has been sentenced by district court in Bad Oeynhausen in North Rhine-Westphalia to 11 months imprisonment without parole. So, Süddeutsche Zeitung reported on Tuesday. Haferbeck-Wetzel was convicted of the crime of incitement of hatred for denying the Holocaust in a letter she sent to the Central Councils of Jews in Germany, as well as on her website. In Germany, the crime of incitement of hatred refers to actions that encourage hatred or violence towards a group of people because of their religion, race, or ethnic background. It also punishes any individual who publicly, quote, approves of, denies, or downplays the actions of the Nazis which violated international law by up to 5 years in prison. And so the main thrust here is, as I said, they will come for old ladies, and they will come for you. This woman is just the most visible because she's prominent. She's out in the open.
Yeah.
They will come for you.
Oh,
if you think this, they will come for you. And 5 years is just the starting point. So, I'm not saying go throw yourself to the lions and demand that Caesar martyr me, as some of our ancestors in faith have done. But I am saying that you need to be ready.
You don't hit and run, you run and hit.
This really brings us back to the point we were talking about earlier about like the idea about if you're in the struggle, right? People need to realize that this is not just fun and pepes, as they say. It's this shit is real, and we are going to experience discomfort. Think about the fact that the government is willing to go out for 80-year-olds and throwing them in prison for self-presumed war crimes. The fact that they're willing to go out for families, they're attacking families left and right. They're trying to undermine financially families. Like, they're in here.
Yeah, I mean, in Sweden here we have several laws that does exactly what that says. For example, you can barely homeschool people at all. You can't homeschool your children. If you try that, either you have to pay huge fines or your children is taken away from you. That's the situation here. Plus, we have these incitement laws as well in Sweden. But here sodomites are included as a people group. Which is insane.
Let me guess. If you are like a quote unquote same-sex family, I'm sure that you will be allowed to homeschool your children.
Yeah, that's where those people are end up, and we all know what happens after.
Because you can't have those evil heterophobes.
Yeah. And I think but this is just to elucidate in greater detail. They will steal your children from you and rape them.
Yeah.
That's what the state will do to you. The state will steal your children and give them to sodomites to turn into prostitutes.
Yeah, and they will laugh about it.
What Sam Hodge said on Twitter, showed a pic of Rachel Maddow and said, "Reminder, these people want your children brainwashed, raped, and then they're going to laugh at you for it."
Yeah. That has actually literally happened. I read in Norway. The official report in Rotterdam, England, the huge scandal there. There was a reporter, I think I mentioned sometime last episode, but I will mention it again, because it's so important to realize the psychopathy of these people. This father tried to rescue his daughter from these packies abusing her, raping her, all that stuff. The packies called the police. They knew that the police would obey the packies, of course. The police arrested the father for, being disorderly when he, knocked on the door and panicked outside because the packies were raping his daughter. And what the police said to this father was, "Don't worry about it. It's a part of growing up." And this daughter was like 13 or something like that.
Well, that's welcome to modern society.
And he grinned.
This is anarcho-tyranny.
Welcome to modern society.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the Zionist occupation government does to you, right? And this is the uniqueness, I think, of the situation we find ourselves in. I don't think in any other time in history we've had a tyranny of this nature. Because think about it like this: your people are either sovereign and independent, and hopefully the state is oriented towards the welfare of the many. But even if it's not, if it's just oriented towards the welfare of the few, it's usually not overtly aggressive against the population it's governing. Or otherwise, you're under an occupation government. And so they just kind of want economic extractions and peacefulness in the marketplace. But they have a vested interest in making sure that everything continues as normal, is healthy. And so they support, the firmament of society. That's why living under an imperial power is not always the worst thing in the world. I mean, your people are subjugated, but life goes on. But we live in a state where the people that govern us, they hate us. Our leaders want to see us destroyed. They want to see us degenerated into nothing. But they're not an occupation government in the regular type, because they're not interested in law and order. That's why we say that they're a Zionist occupation government.
Yeah,
the only group that they're interested in seeing prospering is the Jews.
The only thing they want to extract is your soul.
So at this point, it might be important to realize that being out in the open as an activist might not be the wisest choice. I mean, it's good if you want to go out in a blaze of glory, but at this point, secrecy has a good value. You might want to organize without everyone knowing that you're an evil Nazi activist. Maybe name your organization Johnson and Johnson rather than Nazi Action USA or something. just something, and instead of doing marches in the street, you might want to buy property and network with people and get resources to prepare for struggle, rather than advertising what you're doing and not doing anything practical that will actually do anything when shit hits the fan.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, I will have to counter signal a bit here, Siger. Well, of course, I believe that it is important to like stay anonymous, but I do believe that the aspects of like faceless resistance is very effective. If you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, black blocking.
Yeah, you can do both, but like separate those things. So they're not going to be like, oh, well, all these properties that these guys are buying, they're linked to these neo-Nazi activities. So we're going to like confiscate all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
compartmentalize your life.
Exactly, and this is and it's difficult because the pressure against you is only going to be worse as things ramp up. It starts now, you can go to prison, they'll take your children from you, but these are still pretty, they don't happen every day. But they will begin to increase in frequency, and then they will do things like seize your property. And so if you're known to be a political agitator, they'll put you in prison for 10 years, they'll take your children from you, and they'll seize your house and your assets as political assets, as the assets of a seditionist or a traitor. And so they will take everything from you. That's fucking for certain. So that's the life that you have to be willing to walk down, because that's the terminal. So just be aware.
But what you reap in time, you'll harvest in eternity.
Truly, truly. Okay, now we have a few other articles to go forward for. This one is this one is particularly interesting. From churchmilitant.com. Satanic Temple in Boston complains after denial of satanic invocation. As of Wednesday, a fringe satanic group will not be invited to perform a prayer invocation at a Boston City Council meeting. The head of the Satanic Temple in Boston was turned down even after alleging religious oppression. Satanic Temple Boston claims to be made up of non-theistic Satanists. The head of the Satanic Temple Boston, who identifies as Travis, complained in a letter Tuesday to the Boston City Council, writing, "Over the past year, the invited clergy performing these actions have been overwhelmingly Christian. As a member of a religious minority, I plead with you to consider allowing me to perform an invocation." It's like, oh, please, I'm an oppressed minority. Please let me summon Satan in your city hall, please. And
please give us a public space to praise Satan, please.
Yes, exactly. Wait, what? You're denying us a platform for worshiping Satan? How bigoted! How absolutely bigoted!
It's literally
very
relevant if they are theistic or not, because in a way, atheism is inherently Satanism. What was Lucifer? He was an atheist. He said, I'm going to be my own god.
Listen, here. The thing about these people, right? These anti-theists, Satanists, these degenerate fucks. The thing about them is that they are toe suckers, inherently. They are toe suckers to their own shitty behavior, and they want to enable it. And I have a personal saying, toe suckers, they don't need no teeth. So, yeah, you can interpret that in whatever way you want, gentlemen. I still say, they don't need no fucking teeth.
Astute point.
That's where the golf clubs come in.
Yeah, well, and this is the other thing. E. Michael Jones writes about this E. Michael Jones writes about this in Libido Dominandi, which is, he talks about basically sex as a method of political control, but I think it more broadly applies to what we're doing. Is they're going to use, like, gay marriage is a great example. Oh, you won't bake a gay wedding cake? I'm going to put you in prison, boy. We'll shut down your business. Right? And they're going to increase that. That's in Norway. I was just reading an article the other day where the Catholic Church has gotten out of the business of legally marrying people. Bishops no longer issue state marriage certificates. It's purely sacramental because they see this coming. They know that it's going to be like, oh, well, you see, well, if you're going to use the state apparatus to issue legally binding documents, then you're going to have to obey our regulations. So if you won't do the gay marriage in your little church there, well, we're going to have a problem. And, it's that's where it's going to go.
Buckle up, buckaroo.
Maybe this is one of the things that is so important. Even if you don't consider yourself to be fascist or Christian, whatever. They do. They sure as hell do. They don't think of you, even if you're a reactionary or alt-right or whatever, all they see is a fascist. And they're going to treat you just like they're going to treat us.
Precisely.
So we might as well
So-
be an actual fan.
So let me say something here. Which side are you on? Are you going to sit there and try and rationalize in front of people who ultimately want to destroy everything you love, or are you going to pick a side? Are you going to say, come out of the woodworks and say, yeah, I'm not a fucking alt-rightist. I am exactly everything you hate, and likewise, I shall act accordingly on the basis of my belief. I am a fascist. I am a Christian, and you treat me like shit. Well, trust me, I can treat you even worse than you treat me. What I'm really telling you, people, is get off the fence, choose a side. Alt-rightism, that's not just another rationalization for your cowardice. You're not willing to pick the one true side, and inherently, you listening, who claim to be alt-right, you're a fence-sitter. You just want to be tipping a bit more to the right. But you're still sitting comfortably on the sign of incorrectness. You're sitting there on that fence. It's incorrect. Get off it. Get on the right side, faggot.
Exactly. I mean, the alt-right is intellectualist masturbation. That's what it is.
Precisely.
Cowardice.
Before it.
Precisely.
Just like NRX before it.
Precisely. This is just rationalization. They're trying to intellectualize the fact that they're cowards. It's just...
sorry. Continue.
Well, that's the thing. They use these abstractivist terms to try and hyper intellectualize everything. And in essence, what this all boils down to is the fact that they're a bunch of fucking cowards and pussies.
Yeah, and I think that this is actually a really elegant transition into what we wanted to talk about, but we should address at the end a little bit. The internet is not everything. It is important. I mean, it is the way we're organizing right now, the way we're distributing this propaganda, this media. It has a place. But it's not the end. It's a tool. And there's something similar to this in race. And so there are a lot of people that believe being pro-white is enough. That all we need, basically, is a nice white country and everything else will work itself out. This is untrue. It's bullshit. It's a lie. Being white is not enough. There are plenty of societies that are white and homogeneous, that are completely degenerate. Look at Sweden.
Essentially what these people want...
They were degenerate before they started importing people, not after.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they want to go back to the early stages of cancer. That's what they want. They want to go back to the early stages of cancer. And they think that is enough. But newsflash, faggots, you still have fucking cancer.
It's bourgeois sentimentalism.
Correct. That is a very correct terminology you just brought forth there, Hans. It is this bourgeois mentality, this romanticism of the bourgeoisie, fucking idealism, this fucking hyper-materialistic piss. And they know somewhere deep inside that, this is what it's about. But they don't want to come to the hard conclusion, because that is uncomfortable. Because, if they come to this conclusion, they realize that radical means are necessary. They must realize it. Whatever the situation is, what we need is something fucking radical to change the course that we're going towards. But no, they think that, we can go back to the white picket fences, baseball, and apple pies.
Exactly. So I think what is necessary to be elucidated is that race is super important. Race is very important. It's a critical component of a functioning, healthy society. But it's not everything. Race is not nation. Race is not ethnicity. It's not culture, and it's not religion. You need everything working together to produce the best results. You need not only a good, firm genetic basis upon which to flower the fruits of your civilization, but you need your people to be healthy physically and mentally. You need them to have a strong spiritual direction in life, a set of morals that don't shift with the changing of the seasons and drive them towards pro-civilizational activity, and most importantly, truth and righteousness.
So essentially, you need race and then some more. It's not enough. Yeah. You need more, not
It's just like a house.
less.
You need a foundation, but what is a house with no walls and a roof and just a foundation? It's just a platform.
Ultimately, I think the standard by which we can judge whether our society is civilized or not is the character of our people. And all of these things, race, the genetic quality, culture, religion, ideology, all of these are like supports for character. But for example, if if everyone lives a life of comfort and they have luxuries and never experience hardship, their character is never going to be shaped. They're going to remain weak. They're not going to be able to make sacrifices. They're not going to be able to endure pain, and like I said, hardships.
Stress.
So, stress. That's why just having, just being white, and even just having the right religion is not enough. You need circumstances. Like the typical example that people have is Sparta. The Spartan king, Lycurgus, or he wasn't the king, but he was the lawmaker. He saw the future, and he saw that there was great danger of becoming degenerate, and so they established a social order that ensured the continued development of the Spartan character, and that was the defining aspect of their society. How everyone in Greece knew that Spartans, they had the greatest character. They were strong. They were serious. They could handle anything. And basically, that's what we want. The cosmic order can only be implemented if people have the character to do it. Because really, it takes a lot of character to say, I have this, these natural abilities. I have these duties. And maybe I'm not at the top, but I'm still going to do it because that's the right thing to do. I'm going to make these sacrifices because that's the right thing to do.
That's a key word.
Not everyone can do that. What?
That's a key word. Sacrifice. That's a key word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being able to make sacrifices is not something easy, and it's not something that most people today are capable of doing. But we'll have to be able to do it.
Well, let's try. I think that a lot of people nowadays don't really understand the concept of sacrificing anything, right? I don't really think that a lot of our listeners understand the concept of making a sacrifice. The fact that you might feel uncomfortable for a long period of time. I think a lot of people have not really come to terms with that, either getting stigmatized or ostracized, something like that. I think that a lot of people here need to prepare themselves if they're willing to make that step, right? To make the step towards saying, yeah, I'm willing to save our people, right? If they're capable of doing that, they need to come to terms. And I say again, they really need to come to terms with the fact that they will feel uncomfortable. Discomfort is also a major keywords in the struggle that we are in.
There's
pain builds character.
There's a good example from ancient Rome of a man with a very high character. It was a Roman general, Marcus Atilius Regulus. When he was captured by the Carthaginians told him, okay, we'll release you on parole. We want you to go to the Senate and urge for peace. Now, Marcus, he said, sure, I'd go. But what he did was that he went to the Senate and said, hey guys, we really shouldn't accept this peace. We should continue the war. After he said that, he returned to his captors. He told his captors what he had done. And his captors, they tortured him to death. But he had character. A very, very strong character. And he became a legend in Rome.
Yeah, there's innumerable examples of this. One of my personal favorites is Saint Jean de Brébeuf, a Jesuit missionary that came to New France in the 17th century to convert the Iroquois and the other Indians. And basically, he ended his life in the hands of a Mohawk war party, ritualistically tortured to death as they would other chiefs of tribes that they were at war with. So, long story short, he would not stop telling them of the joys that could be theirs in heaven. He tried to convert them until they chopped off his jaw. And he ended his life having his heart cut out and eaten before his eyes. So that's character.
Indeed.
So,
it's a grave misconception that people have of the Star Trek future. I think that's something that's really rotting people's minds, is the idea that we can have a future in which everyone's super comfortable. Each of our needs is being met by machines and systems, and yet everyone will still be a hero. Everyone will still do their jobs and things like that, and yet we'll still have a libertarian ideology and no religion and nothing like that. That's like a cancerous concept that could never exist.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
So yes.
Now I've got the last article for this week.
Oh,
We're getting to the end of the second hour here.
well, can I say one thing?
Certainly.
Well, to all our listeners, whatever you might be doing, so far I know that you are probably feeling, you're getting a bit of a sweat on your head, like you're sitting there, you're like, whoa, this is some heavy stuff. Whoa, what's going on here?
Oh, I need to wipe my forehead. Oof.
These guys are actually questioning my character. Wow, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Well, boys, all I have to say is, take that cloth you have in your hand, swap your forehead, right? Think to yourself, well, I'm going to reevaluate what I'm doing. You know what? Next month, next week, actually today, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to get in contact with my radicals. I'm going to become a white revolutionary. You know what? I'm actually going to go into my computer and delete my Pepe folder and get active. I'm actually going to start...
Delete your porn folder is more important.
Yeah, well, both of them. Delete all that shit. And get ready, boys. Listen. Tomorrow... You hear that? That's my snaps. Tomorrow is yours, boys. Tomorrow belongs to us.
Very true. Very true. Now let's move to our last article of the day. This article is shorthand entitled Jesuits! Abortion Destigmatized at Chicago Jesuit University. Again from Church Militant. They really have some good articles.
That's strange.
An abortion activist group is conducting fake abortions on a Catholic Jesuit campus to destigmatize abortion. Students for Reproductive Justice, an unapproved student group at Chicago's Loyola University, conducted a papaya workshop in September. The group claims the workshop's purpose is to teach people about aspiration abortions and to destigmatize abortion in general. The group's Facebook page comments that aspiration, or vacuum abortions, are very similar to sucking the seeds out of a papaya. The event was sponsored by Midwest Access Project, a group that trains people how to perform abortions. Abortion tools for the workshop were provided by the Chicago Women's Center, a local abortion mill. The Catholic University is so far refusing to grant the group official student club status. On September 28th, school officials told SRJ to leave the campus when it was conducting a protest and handing out condoms and birth control information on campus. In a press release, the group maintains that the school has a strict policy against providing contraception to its students, and quotes the university's website saying, in keeping with the Jesuit Catholic beliefs about family planning that are espoused by Loyola University in Chicago, the Wellness Center does not provide oral contraceptives or other devices for the purpose of preventing pregnancy. Despite the complaint, SRJ did manage to win one battle. It has had complained about pro-life material being present at the university's Wellness Center, a campus clinic for students. The group complained that the material provided at Crisis Pregnancy Center conveyed medically inaccurate information about abortion. The material was provided by Aid for Women, an organization that provides counseling, testing, and support for pregnant women, provides a 24-hour crisis hotline, and provides housing for pregnant women in difficult situations. All services are free. So, yeah, I mean, oof.
Death cult.
Yeah, well,
Makes me angry. Makes me angry.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's a certain level of this, we end up going into these Kali Yuga news stories, and there's not a lot to say. That kind of stand on their own, and it's just
demonic.
Well, yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
These people need to be put to death. Is basically what it comes down to.
Burn them all.
Yeah,
of course, don't do anything illegal. I mean, please obey the law.
As I like to say for the longest time, the stake calls for them.
No, well, let me put it
beckons.
this way. Let me explain a terminology to our dear listeners, and I'm going to try and put this very simplistic. I know you guys like it simple, so I'm going to try and put something towards you guys. Moral activism. What does this entitle? What does the phenomenon of moral activism imply? I can come forth with an example of moral activism. There was an incident back in 2006, I believe it was, where there was this artist, quote-unquote artist, who put forth this art gallery of white men sucking black cock, testicles getting stepped on in high heels, and all sorts of other perversions. What happened there was that a handful of Swedish nationalists with hoodies and face masks walked in, and they bashed up the entire art gallery, destroyed it. Now, what I might imply is that if you are to look yourself in the mirror when you are confronted with filth like this in your local area and you have friends who are capable, ask yourself the following, that visceral reaction when you see filth like this. People who literally promote murdering children. Ask yourself, am I gonna make a compromise, a moral compromise with child murderers? Am I gonna make a compromise that states that I'm okay with this? Or are you, as a moral activist, gonna do something? I'm not stating that you should go out and kill people who abort people. I'm merely stating, adhere to your moral instincts. Adhere to morals.
Though I think we can all say that if someone did happen to go do that, we're not going to condone or condemn, nor necessarily feel
I disagree, but I understand.
Now, we're not promoting for people to do anything illegal by any means. We are merely saying that visceral reaction when you see child murderers, maybe you should listen to that tiny conscience you have inside you.
Yeah, and I think this is actually the reason
how the Holy Spirit works. If you're going to read the Church Fathers, that's how they describe it totally.
This is why
dragging you to God.
This is why common filth is so important, I think. Is because what common filth does is it draws back the glamour that the demon casts over itself to make it appealing to the eye. And it shows you what's actually going on behind the curtain of deception weaved by the synagogue of Satan. What fags do in the privacy of their own homes and bathhouses. And so I make the challenge, you look at common filth and you see what fags do. All this, well, if you support abortion, watch an abortion. I guarantee the vast majority of people who support it have never watched one performed. Go watch a third trimester late-stage abortion.
Well, I have had displeasure of watching an aborted fetus, still in the stomach sac, as they say. What do you call it? That's the membrane.
Placenta.
Yeah. Placenta, yes.
I've seen a child, moving inside that, and people justify that as, oh, wait, that's not a human, bro. That's not a human. Kind of looks human to me, I will admit.
Yeah.
But again, it just really showcases how people don't understand the purpose of their testicles, nor the purpose of a vagina.
Yeah. I think abortion is actually a kind of a good canary for a lot of different things. Because it tells you a couple of things about the person. Do they have a utilitarian morality?
Right. Exactly.
Are their principles absolute, or do they change depending on circumstances? And aside from that, with abortion, here's the way the argument boils down to. Either it's life from conception, or life is tied to recognizability, basically. When the fetus becomes human enough or nominal enough, normal enough to consider it to be a human being. It's really an argument from utility. When it resembles us enough, then we say, oh, well, we afford it meaning. But under this logic, if we say that, well, the value of a child comes not from, the inherent life that it is a member of our species, qua being a human, but comes from its utility, its recognizability, well then, you can justify infanticide very easily. What's the practical difference between a child who is 9 months in the womb but still there, and then one who's delivered the next day? Or 6 months?
Exactly. And
right?
there's even been examples where newly born babies are being left to die because, well, the mother decided that she didn't want the baby, so they're making a late-term abortion. Oh,
well,
the abortion failed. Let's just make the baby die instead.
That's what happened in Poland to stir up the big anti-abortion sentiment. There was a news story that was going around where basically a woman gave birth to a baby, and it was a couple of months premature, and they just left it to scream and die for 20 minutes. It was crying.
This is making me very, very angry. I cannot. This is too much.
On that
I'm getting
triggering note,
very-
I think that we're getting towards the end of our podcast. Did anybody have anything else they would
Needless
like
to say, I want to reiterate that we don't exactly encourage illegal activity or violence, but if someone was to send these people to the gaping maw of hell that they deserve to go to,
Well, they would deserve it, yeah.
they have it coming.
Listen, adhere to the law of God before the law of man. That's what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I
Exactly.
want to read a quick thing. It's Romans 1, verse 28 to 32. Furthermore, just as I did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what ought not to be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such thing deserve death, they do not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them.
Ended on this note.
Indeed. So thank you all, I guess, for joining me today for the second episode of Mysterium Fasces. Today on the panel we have myself, Florian Geyer, your host. We have joining me today Dr. Mayhem, PhD. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Mayhem.
Death to all heathens.
Oh, pithy. Hans, Greve Hans, please, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Enthusiastic, high energy. Natt,
dude,
who is
it's
perpetually
middle of
high
winter.
energy. Thank you
He
for joining
got
us.
he got a little black pilled on that last bit.
Gud med os, sejren er vores, hilsejr.
Zyger,
Seger.
thank you for joining us. Your input is always welcome.
Thank you. It was good to be there.
And thank you to the listener for joining us for the second episode of Mysterium Fasces. Shalom. Ave Maria.
Wir sind des Geiers schwarzer Haufen, Heia, oh, und wollen mit Tyrannen raufen, Heia, oh, Spieß voran, rauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn, Spieß voran, rauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Als Adam grub und Eva schwang, Kyrie eleis, wo war denn da der Edelmann? Kyrie eleis, Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Uns führt der Florian Geyer an, trotz Acht und Bann. Den Bundschuh führt er in der Fahn, hat Helm und Harnisch an. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Bei Weinsberg setzt es Brand und Stank, Heia, oh, gar mancher über die Klinke sprang, Heia, oh, Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Morgen ziehen wir nach Haus. Ei, ja, oh, unsere Enkel fechten's besser aus. Ei, ja, oh, Spieß voran, rauf und ran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten an. Spieß voran, rauf und ran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten an.